What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to do a corner balance and alignment on the S550 swap Mustang. If you're here just for the corner balance and alignment, welcome. Please hit that subscribe button. If you're here because you're following this S550 swap, we're going to kind of be wrapping this up because, next video will be the first race weekend with this thing. Alright guys, so I'm set up. You can see that I put some plastic bags under the tires. I picked this up from another YouTuber, Shane Whaley. I'll put a link to his channel. He's got a pretty badass S550 that he does drifting with. But the bag under the tire trick, as slippery as these bags are, they really allow the tires just to kind of like slide and turn and all that stuff. So it's a cheap, easy way to kind of avoid any binding. Now, I don't really have any rubber bushings on this car, but just to give you an example, the front, normally really hard to turn. I can just take like one hand real easily, So nice little trick there, Shane. If you're watching this, thank you. But yeah, so I obviously zeroed them out. The other things you want to do, especially if you want to get like hypercritical, disconnect a sway bar end link from each end, so that way the sway bars aren't kind of influencing the balance of the car one way or the other. If you have adjustable sway bars, you then put them on while the car is loaded, adding like zero preload. The other thing, the tire pressures are equal all around. If you have a tire that's, a tire is basically a spring, so if it's overinflated or underinflated, that'll give you funny numbers as well. And then lastly, you kind of want to make sure it's on, as flat, as flat an area as you can get, because if the floor is actually like a little bit wavy or like a hump where the tire is, the scales will read it as like the perch being up instead of you're just sitting on, crooked ground, I guess. But, try and get it as good as you can. So yeah, our initial numbers without me sitting in the car. Let's see, 2795. Let's see, I'll sit in it. Now everybody will know how heavy I am. Let's see, so with me in it, oh, I'm way off. So the right rear is definitely light. Alright, so right now the right rear is way light. I think I'm going to move the perch up on that side because the front, I know ride height is kind of right about where I want it. So I'm probably only going to make adjustments in the rear. So yeah, let's go up. I don't know, I could do a little bit of math to get pretty close right off of one shot. So yeah, we're just going to go up on the right rear spring perch and then see what our numbers give us. Alright guys, so all I did was, a little dark in here, but the spring perch, spun it around to go up with it. So if you think about it, going up with that spring perch, when the car comes down, weight is on that spring sooner. I hope that makes sense. So that's why when it's loaded, more of the vehicle's weight is on that right rear corner. Now, without me in the car, we're at 50 and a half, and you can see the numbers don't look too terrible. But, obviously I'm in it when I'm racing. So, we'll hop in it. And then, if you look at the numbers now, dead on 50. 4 pounds of difference on every corner. I may not have mentioned, but the car has about 9 pounds of gas in it, or 9 gallons of gas. So let's see, I'm looking at these numbers and like that's actually really badass. All I did was adjust that right rear spring perch. And if you don't have coilovers, you got conventional springs or something, you can always use shims. It's a lot more work, but you should be able to corner balance almost any car. So yeah, so corner balance is done. Honestly, that's really all there is to it. I gotta remember that, off camera, what I'm gonna do, lift the car up, pull the wheels off. I gotta lock in those spring perches. Don't want anything like coming loose on me. But yes, I mean, that's honestly it for corner balance. Pretty easy. Onto alignment. Alright guys, so as you can see, I have my string just set up, you know, roughly right now. You're gonna need a pretty fine ruler or scale if you want to get technical. And what you got to do is from the center of the wheel out to the string, make it even. Oops. Make it even side to side. So I got this side loosely set up as well. So what I'm going to do is, you know, this is going to take a handful of times to get it set up. And then you also want to make it even from the front side, but you also need the width between them the same. I did have a set of toe strings, but in the move, I don't know what happened. I lost them. So yeah, we're going a little bit extra old school on this one. Take a tiny bit more time to set up, but for the most part, just make sure you build a perfectly square box around the car and you should be good. Alright, so if this is the four wheels of the car, let's purposely like kind of draw it a little bit crooked. And then this one, I know the front is good because I didn't do any suspension stuff, but if they're off, it's all the same. So you want to make sure, let's see, if the strings are, you know, wider at the back than the front, you'll get a funny measurement and think you're actually towed, what would it be, out right here. Where, so if the measurement between the front points total width and the rear is nice and even, you know, that way you know that this wheel is kind of where you want, and this one will have to come out. So I hope that kind of makes sense. It's just kind of simple geometry at this point. So yeah, off camera I'm going to get these set up because that's kind of boring. Once we get them set up, we'll make a few adjustments, get it dialed in, and should be good to go. Alright guys, so I got the string squared up on both sides. I used this tram gauge right here just to easily get the spacing right from side to side. So now what we need to do, if you measure from the wheel to the string, get your measurement in front. We'll use millimeters because it's a little bit easier. So it's 65 even and 65, oh wow, I got lucky. 65 even. So we know the string is perfectly square to the car, and I actually didn't touch that wheel. It's just kind of how it is, I guess. You know, we know we're practically at zero toe in the right rear. We actually want a tiny bit of toe in, just the way this car is. Your car is going to be different. So we're just going to turn the toe link to kind of pull the front of that wheel in, probably about a 1/16 of an inch. So what's that? About a millimeter. And then we're going to do the same with the left rear. The front, since I never touched it and I aligned it before I did all this subframe swap stuff, we're probably not going to touch. I'll just double check it. But, you know, otherwise that's about it for the rear. I'm sorry, camber. We'll do camber in a second. The way the rears are set up on these S550 rear ends, the toe link and camber link will kind of adjust each other a little bit at the same time. So you might have to kind of like, if you do camber, the toe's going to be out, and then if you do the toe, the camber will move a little bit too. So I'll probably just do like 2-3 rounds of that to get me kind of close. And then once I get at the track, tire temps will kind of, you know, help me like fine tune it a little bit. Alright guys, so after a little bit of tinkering, you can see we're at about 63.5 millimeters. And then on the front, we're at about 64.5, maybe 65 dead even. So we got about a millimeter and a half, close enough to that 16th, you know, toe in, since the front measurement is a little bit more. Yeah, so that's about toe. The front, you do it the same exact way. Camber, let's double check camber real quick. I did this in another video, but we'll do it again here. You know, again, easy enough to do with string, so I'll show you how I do that. Alright guys, so camber, we're going to do almost the same thing, but what we're going to do is hang kind of a plumb bob in front of the tire. I got to use both hands for this one. You want to make sure that it doesn't touch the tire down there. So what I'm going to use is just kind of this little flashlight to hold it out a little bit. Take our measurements and then use a trig calculator to figure out our camber. So it's really close to the tire, but you can see it's not touching the tire. It's not influenced by that in any way. You want to make sure it kind of stops swinging. Get it as accurate as you can. So we'll call it 24. And then the top is 35. 24 to 35 is an 11 millimeter difference across now these are 17-inch rims, but where I measured on the lip is actually about 18 inches. So let's go do a tiny bit of math. Alright guys, so let's say this is my tire, and if you remember it was what, 24 here and 35 here. So we have an 11 millimeter difference. If we were to, let's run that out to the tire. If we were to make this a right triangle, 11 millimeters. So we got 11 millimeters here. If you remember right, where we measured was 18 inches. So 18 inches converted to millimeters. So 18 inches is actually 457 millimeters. So we're going to plug these into a trig solver and get our angle. Alright guys, so I have one of those trigonometry apps on my phone. Now if you remember, it was 11 millimeters out, and then this measurement was 457. Calculate it, and we're at 1.4 degrees. Alright, so that 1.4 degrees I know is a little bit misleading because this concrete slab that my carport is on is actually about a good 3/4 of a degree sloped away from the house. So if we add that 3/4 to the 1.4, 1.5, so that's like 2 1/4 ish. Again, this isn't like super accurate just because the floor is kind of crooked, so that kind of goes back to why doing it on as level of a surface as possible is the best. Or what I could do, actually like space the wheels up, or the, you know, space the car so the wheels are perfectly level. I'm not going to get that hardcore into it again because when I get to the track and take tire temps, who knows what I need. I might need to add a tiny bit more, take it out, whatever. I just know I'm in a range that's acceptable to kind of get this thing out and shake it down. Alright guys, just for comparison, I did the numbers on this, and the top side is actually 25 millimeters in, and if you remember, that side was 11. So if I do the numbers on this one, you can see it gives us about 3.1 degrees right here. And again, with the driveway, or I'm sorry, this concrete slab being sloped away from the house about 3/4 of a degree, you know, that gives us 2.3 or so degrees. And that side was about 2.2-ish, which kind of makes sense because when I assembled this thing, I just slammed them all the way in. You know, so that kind of makes it make sense why it's even side to side. So yeah, I think that's really about it for this corner balance and alignment. As you can see, there really isn't much to it. You know, the scales, you kind of need those. You can do like kind of like a cheap leverage ratio scale. If you Google it, you'll kind of come across something where you can actually use like bathroom scales. But yeah, the scales are a little bit pricey for the average person if you're kind of, you know, only doing this, you know, once or twice. But yeah, as far as you can see, the alignment, all you really need is some jack stands and some fishing string and a ruler basically. Alright guys, so that's about it for this one. If you learned something, please hit that like button and give this video a thumbs up. Remember to hit that subscribe button. The next video will be this car at the track. We'll do our first weekend shakedown. Fingers crossed everything goes well. It's going to be fun regardless. So as always, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you in the next one.